Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a very special episode of the Pitch to Profit podcast. I'm your host, as ever, Oliver Keane. Thank you for joining me today as we look into the state of Turkish football. As you can see behind me, I have a Turkish scarf with the Turkish flag. I'm currently wearing the Euro 2016 qualifying, or maybe Euro 2016 Turkey away shirt. It is a nation that's very close to my heart, as I am half Turkish on my mother's side, with my family being from Istanbul. So, I want to look at the state of Turkish football, particularly with a focus on this year. It is a league and a country that has so much passion. There's so much rivalry, controversy, high quality games, storylines. I think it's amazing. I think it gets overlooked sometimes. And sometimes it focuses just on the controversy, but there's a lot of positive points around the league. So thank you for joining me, as I say. To any Turkish people watching, merhaba. Mutlu oldum siz geldiniz. And we're going to get started with it. So to give some context on it, the head of the Turkish Football Federation is a man by the name of Ibrahim Hacıosmanoğlu, and he was appointed July 18th, 2024. He replaced the previous TFF president after a series of incidents regarding scandals in Turkish refereeing, pretty much, which we'll get onto later because it's a pretty recent topic that has come about of November this year. Many people may not be fond of Mr. Hacıosmanoğlu. Some people may like him. I think TFF itself is an entity that people don't have much trust in, really, especially within Turkey. Until corruption and scandals are stopped, I don't think it matters who the head of any organization in Turkish football's upper echelon is. The trust is still, and the mistrust is gonna still continue, and I think that's fair. A lot of supporters have had enough of this controversy. Passion is one thing, but constant scandal and maybe violence is not great. But that is the context on Mr. Hacıosmanoğlu, who is, a year into his presidency. As I just alluded to take us back to the beginning of the year, the kind of problems stemmed from controversy surrounding Jose Mourinho, who was the manager of Fenerbahçe, with him accusing the TFF and referees of bias against Fenerbahçe. We're not going to go too much into that because there are definitely some things you can read out there about what Mr. Mourinho thought, but he's now the manager of Benfica. So that is in itself where this all kind of started in terms of this year. In previous years, you had the 2011 match fixing scandal, and that still kind of has a dark cloud over Turkish football, where several high level people were accused of match fixing in the result of the 2010-11 Turkish league result. But anyway, that's in the past. So looking at this year, Galatasaray won their third league title in a row, making their 25th league title, the most in Süper Lig history, giving them the fifth star on their badge. Under Okan Buruk's management at Galatasaray and Dursun Özbek, who's the Galatasaray president's reign, they have won 3 back-to-back championships, which many of the other top clubs in Turkey, Fenerbahçe, Beşiktaş, and Trabzonspor, have not really been able to compete with Galatasaray domestically. Fenerbahçe have been the closest, missing out by a couple points in the last few years, but still Galatasaray has remained dominant on the whole, maybe losing one game in a season, in the league season. And last year they completed the double as well. Sorry, this year they completed the double, winning the Turkish Cup as well. But away from the big three and Trabzonspor, one of the biggest achievements in Turkish football history occurred this year. Samsunspor qualified for the UEFA Conference League. Now, to give some context to this is a phenomenal achievement, as in 2018 the club did not have a president, nearly went bankrupt, and was relegated to the 2 League, which is the third division of Turkish football, followed by a takeover by Yüksel Yıldırım in the same year in 2018. In 2020, they were promoted to the Bir League, which is the second division of Turkish football. And in 2023, they were promoted to the Süper Lig, the top flight of Turkish football. And in 2025, the season that's just gone, they had a top 3 finish and qualified for European football, which is just amazing for the first time in the club's history. It makes a nice change as well from the usual big 3 or 4 clubs who are always qualifying. So it's nice to see Samsunspor having some success, and we'll get on to how they're currently doing in the UEFA Conference League a little later on in the video. Now, obviously, as I alluded to, Turkish football is super competitive, and this always results in high spending in summer transfers, but none like this window before. Obviously, when you're looking at Galatasaray, they're looking to make it 4 league titles in a row. The last time that happened, and the only time that happened, was between 1996 and 2000, when the current manager, Okan Buruk, was a player for the club. And under Fatih Terim, they won 4 back-to-back league titles and won the UEFA Cup against Arsenal in 2000, with Georgi Hagi and players like that in the side. So they're looking to match that record, and this was clearly seen by the transfer of Victor Osimhen for 75 million euros plus add-ons. This is a Turkish transfer fee record. It's huge for the club. Obviously, Victor Osimhen was on loan at Galatasaray from Napoli in the previous season, where Galatasaray won the league, and it was phenomenal. I believe he got 37 goals in the season for the club, and they were able to make that permanent, which is a huge statement in not just Turkish football, but European football. They also signed Wilfried Singo, who was, would have broken the Turkish transfer record as well for about £30 million. Urucan Çakır, the Turkish national team goalkeeper and Trabzonspor's captain, was signed by Galatasaray for around 30 million as well as the free transfers of İlkay Gundogan and Leroy Sané from Manchester City and Bayern Munich respectively. İlkay Gundogan being a massive Galatasaray fan growing up as a German Turk, supporting Galatasaray since his youth, and Leroy Sané being a huge acquisition in the summer, the first of the transfer period. But it wasn't just Galatasaray. Fenerbahçe also invested heavily into the club. They signed former Galatasaray player Kerem Aktürkoğlu for around £22.5 million from Benfica. He'd be performing really well in Europe for them. In fact, he knocked out Fenerbahçe when they had Jose Mourinho as manager this year from the Champions League, but he's now signed for them and he's playing really well. They've signed players like Sofian Amrabat, Ederson, the Manchester City goalkeeper, transferred to them for around £11 million. Archie Brown joined them from Ghent, the English left back, for a fee of around £5 to £6 million. Marco Asensio joined the club as well for a £5 to £7 million fee. He played at Aston Villa in the Premier League on loan from Paris Saint-Germain last season and was pretty good for them, and he's having a good start to his Fenerbahçe career. They secured the permanent transfer of Milan Skriniar from Inter Milan. Milan Skriniar was their captain last season as well, played really well for them. Was unlucky when they didn't win the league, to be fair. And Edson Alvarez, the Mexican central defensive midfielder from West Ham, another statement signing. And Nelson Semedo from Wolverhampton Wanderers, a Portuguese right back, gets a bit of experience in there. So they really bolstered their squad as well. Beşiktaş also did the same to a lesser level. They added big names like Wilfred Ndidi from Leicester after Leicester's relegation to the Championship. They added Redvan Yilmaz, good Turkish fullback. Tammy Abraham, the former Chelsea and Aston Villa striker, also joined the club. And the biggest acquisition was Turkish midfielder Okan Kokcu, who joined from Benfica and is a lifelong Beşiktaş fan. And that's just some examples from the big three, but to give an insight, this was probably the biggest spending in the summer transfer window ever for Turkish football, and it was a real statement of intent. However, to begin the season, this didn't go well for two of the particular clubs. Fenerbahçe and Beşiktaş both ended up sacking Jose Mourinho and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer in the same week, and were replaced by Dominic Tedesco, who took over at Fenerbahçe, and Sergen Yalçın, who once again has become the manager of Beşiktaş. This has been an ongoing problem for Beşiktaş in particular. Since the 1st of July 2024, the club has had 4 managers: Giovanni Van Bronckhorst, Serdar Topraktepe, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, and Sergen Yalçın. Fenerbahçe also made some changes upstairs, with a new president voted in to replace Ali Koç, the famous Turkish billionaire who's been president for the last 7 years, has not won a single league title and has one Turkish cup to his name. Many Fenerbahçe fans have wanted him out for a while, and they got their wish in a very close election, as Sadatin Saran was elected the club's 38th president, who's also another businessman. For those who don't know, in Turkish football, the clubs are not owned by rich billionaires necessarily. They are run by presidents who are voted in general assemblies by officials, supporters, and other constituents relevant to the club. And Mr. Saran was elected Fenerbahçe's president, so from this season onwards, this is his reign, and we will see how it goes. Big news in terms of the broader scope of Turkish football. The TFF has taken a major step onto the global stage. President Ibrahim Hacıosmanoğlu was appointed to FIFA's Stadium and Security Committee, while Vice President Professor Dr. Zera Nese Kavak joins the FIFA Medical Committee, both serving during the 2025 to 29 term. This shows Turkish football trying to get more involved on an international level as well. No matter what the thoughts are of Mr. Hacıosmanoğlu and Dr. Kavak, they're clearly trying to make strides to be more important. Whether that is going to benefit Turkish football is yet to be seen, but that's some news. Now, in terms of current results, when we're looking at the European football in Turkey, Galatasaray are the Champions League representative, Fenerbahçe are the Europa League representative, and as we alluded to earlier, Samsunspor are the UEFA Conference League representative. Galatasaray has 3 wins against Liverpool, Ajax and Bodo Glimt, with losses to Frankfurt and Union Saint-Gilloise. They sit 14th on 9 points as of the recording of this video. Fenerbahçe has 2 wins against Stuttgart and Nice, 2 draws against Ferencvaros and Victoria Plzeň, and a loss to Dinamo Zagreb. They sit 20th on 8 points. Samsunspor, what an amazing tale this is, has 3 wins against Hamrun, Dinamo Kiev and Legia Warsaw, and 1 draw against Bryo Ablik. They sit first and undefeated at the top of the UEFA Conference League on 10 points after 4 games. An amazing achievement for a club that has never been part of European football. Samsunspor should be extremely proud of themselves as a club, and hopefully they can keep making Turkey proud. And hopefully Galatasaray and Fenerbahçe can also keep being successful in the Champions League and Europa League. It'll help the Turkish coefficient rise through the ranks as well, allowing for even more European football from domestic leagues. So I wish them all the success in the world. Now, as much as there are some positives, as I've just mentioned, the big negative, which I alluded to, is the Turkish Football Federation refereeing betting scandal. This controversy around refs has surrounded Turkish football for decades, but it really escalated in 2023 when Faruk Koca, the then MKE Ankara Gucu president, stormed onto the pitch against Rizespor and punched the referee Halil Umut Mela. This was the beginning of an escalation in the mistrust in refereeing, in the distrust rather, and it reached a point where Dutch referee Danny Makeli was appointed to the Galatasaray Fenerbahçe derby last season, but this year in an attempt to pacify both sides. So the betting scandal comes after Hacıosmanoğlu promised to drain the swamp, and after an internal investigation, he declared the swamp not only existed, but was flowing right under the pitch. He said, as a federation, we started by cleaning up our own backyard. If we want to bring Turkish football to the place it deserves, we have to clean up whatever dirt there is. It was found that 371 of 571 active referees across the professional leagues in Turkey held betting accounts. Worse than this, 152 officials were actively gambling, including 7 top-tier Süper Lig referees. Referees are banned from betting on football under FIFA's Code of Ethics, but the data revealed one official had placed more than 18,000 football bets in 5 years, and 42 officials had bet on more than 1,000 matches each. Some of these officials tried to claim that they were betting on games that they were not officiating in. Of course, this is all alleged as of now. None of this has been processed in a court of law, but these are the accusations by the Turkish Football Federation after an internal investigation. So these referees have allegedly been betting on games. More than half of all of Turkey's referees. It's not good for the standard of Turkey. It doesn't matter which club you support. This is a bad thing for Turkish football, because at some point they probably will have favoured all the teams at one point or another, and it shows a real lack of integrity that's rooted deep in the system in Turkish football, which is a shame when you have such a wonderful, passionate fan bases at all these clubs and within this nation. And hopefully this can be sorted out. As of right now, the TFF's Professional Football Disciplinary Board announced that 102 professional footballers from the top two tiers had been suspended, with punishments ranging from 45 days to 1 year. This group includes 25 Super League players. This needs to happen in terms of draining the swamp of Turkish officials who are corrupt. I don't know who's guilty, who's not guilty, but this is an ongoing case, as I said, and it will most likely continue to be for a little while. And hopefully the integrity of Turkish football will continuously improve once this has been uncovered. But like I said, this is dated back to 2011 in terms of referee mistrust, and the escalation in recent years has only continued. So we'll keep you updated on the channel, and we may do another video with a deeper dive into the betting scandal. But as of now, that is the most recent up-to-date news. But back to the positives. We've talked about the Super League and the clubs within it, but let's have a look at the Turkish national team. Close to qualifying for the World Cup for the first time since 2002, when the country finished third in the competition. They've had some really good qualifying wins and games as well. They beat Georgia 3-2. They lost to Spain 6-0, unfortunately, which was a pretty bad blip. But Turkey then went and beat Bulgaria 6-1 in response to that, beat Georgia 4-1, and beat Bulgaria 2-0 again, and drew with Spain 2-2 in their most recent match with the European champions. That was away from home as well in Spain. They now have to enter qualified playoffs with their first game against Romania in March. If they win that and then the final, they will qualify for the World Cup, and it looks like a relatively easy draw for Turkey. I don't want to jinx anything, but this looks like their best opportunity at being at a World Cup for a long, long time. It will have been 24 years by the time the World Cup rolls around in 2026 in USA, Canada, and Mexico, and hopefully it will be part of that. They have a fantastic young squad with 3 young stars, really showing what Turkish football is all about at the moment. These are the 3 highest value players as well. Kenan Yildiz of Juventus, who according to Transfer Market is valued at around 75 million euros. Arda Güler at Real Madrid, who has really turned up his performances this year, is valued at 60 million euros. And Can Uzun at Frankfurt is valued at 45 million euros. All of them play for huge European clubs outside of Turkey, which is great because, of course, we want a lot of domestic talent, but we have that. We have Barış Alper Yilmaz, we have Orkun Kukcu. There's some real talent within Turkish talent within the clubs. Yunus Akgün. You've got these 3. You've got Hakan Çalhanoğlu, Ferdi Kadıoğlu, Uğurcan Çakır. You've got real talented squad, and I'm hoping that Turkey can qualify for the World Cup and continue. But yeah, Turkish football is a unique state. It's a mix of controversy and scandals, unfortunately, but there's also passion, pyros, a love for the clubs beyond anywhere else I've ever seen or heard of. The domestic clubs are doing well in Europe for the first time in a long time. The national team is entered the top 25 of the FIFA World Rankings, I believe, for the first time in over a decade. Yes, there's a dark cloud with the betting scandal and uncertainty over the officiating of Turkish football as a whole. But overall, it's looking positive, the state of Turkish football moving forward. There are things to work on. Younger players need to be developed. There's not really an academy system in Turkey. And what I'm thinking is, if you've enjoyed this video, let us know what topics you'd like me to delve more into, and I can give a more in-depth video on each individual topic, because this was just an overview of the current state of Turkish football. So thank you and teşekkürler for watching this video. I hope you've enjoyed it. I have been your host, Oliver Keane. I know that's not a very Turkish name, but I promise you I am half Turkish. Thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.